Good evening and welcome to this, our 93rd edition of Burlington and Beyond. And we have another special show for you, one that is going to broach a subject that is very, very important to all of us. Probably a little bit more so here in the political atmosphere of today, but we have two wonderful guests who are going to come, who are here. They're not going to come, they're here, and they're going to be talking about the topic tonight, which is abortion, and a group that is called LifeAlliance.life, if you want to go online to find out more about them. I'm not going to say too much other than we do have a bunch of shows coming up. I hope you'll keep tuned. We have all kinds of people coming from the town and also from out of town. So with that, I'd like to have our two guests. I will just call them Walter.
Blake, sorry.
I did that on purpose. Blake and DeeDee. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and lead into the topic for tonight. Blake, tell us a little bit about, and wait, excuse me, most important, my partner, Paul here, is going to be adding to the questioning of these two. Paul is part of the special group that runs this show, Burlington and Beyond, and I'm very happy that he's here with me tonight, and he's going to be I'm going to be his anchor or something like that. At any rate, can you begin and tell us a little bit about yourself, Blake?
Absolutely, Pat. Thank you. So I am Blake Robertson. I am a Billerica resident. I've been here for 15 years. So I introduced myself in our informal time before as a blow-in, and the reason I say that is because I am an Air Force veteran, and I finished my time in the Air Force, and my wife is from this area, and so I took her away for 12 years, and we were blessed to be able to come back to this area and settle, and so it's great to be here, and I'm glad to be here. So, but this whole issue of Life Alliance, as a military member and as a concerned citizen, I think that this issue is one that doesn't get enough attention and enough help. And so when I heard that this group was being started, myself and my family, I said, hey, I'm going to get involved. And actually, my wife and our adult son all are supporting Life Alliance in their endeavors to, frankly, just to change the law. It's one simple change, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. But it's just changing 24 weeks to 12, and pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and I think something that I'd love to see us all get into agreement.
Very good. Glad to have you here.
Welcome.
Great. Hi, my name is DeeDee Dorrington, and I live in Billerica, Massachusetts as well. And I guess I'm a blow-in because I grew up in New Hampshire, but I've been there around 30 years, so I think that qualifies as a resident at this point. But the beauty of the fact that we're living in Billerica doesn't mean that this is just a Billerica effort. So the group is called Life Alliance, and it actually started in April. In my mind, I knew kind of that I would get involved with the abortion and, education and the abortion issue. And what started me was last fall. In 2017, there was another petition drive to get the taxpayers of Massachusetts to stop paying for abortions. A lot of people don't understand that their tax money does pay for abortions because in 1981, the Supreme Court of Massachusetts, the courts of Massachusetts, ruled that if we pay for live births, then we have to pay for abortions. On the federal level, we have the Hyde Amendment, but in Massachusetts, we are paying for these. So when I was out on the petitioning, I was helping to gather some petitions to get it on the ballot, which it did not make it this time. I talked with a lot of people, and there was this one person who challenged me and said, oh, you're lying, stop your lying, we don't pay for abortions, yada, yada, yada. And, I tried to educate him as best that I could. And that got me to thinking, you know what, I'm not even sure I know everything that's included in the abortion laws here in our state. married. So I went home and I did some research, and I found out that abortions are legal on demand, is what they're called, up to 24 weeks here in the state of Massachusetts. In my mind, I thought it was 20 weeks, but even that I knew didn't sit well with me. But when I found out it was 24 weeks, I said, you know what, something's got to be done. So I kind of sat on it a little bit, and then I think it was around the beginning of the year, I went to a few of the local churches, and I asked if they would help me start a group called Life Alone. Well, not, we didn't have a name at that point. It was just kind of to get the community together and to see what we could do about educating people and about changing the law.
So this is strictly a local group?
Strictly a local group. So, you know, St. Teresa's actually put it in their bulletin for us. And Blake, I don't know how you heard about it. I think he saw it in the newspaper, or I might have contacted you. I don't remember, but we had our first meeting, and people came, and it was awesome, you know. So we have a group now that we've now formed, and since then, you know, we've created a website, we have business cards, you know, we have a mission. It's really, we're coming together, you know, we're really about educating people and about helping to change the law, but we do so many other things too.
These people that came all of a sudden to the first meeting, was there a sense of what they were all about? Were they simply supporting the idea that women who have aborted or who are about to abort needed help? Or was it, I believe in this, or was it a little bit of everything?
I'll let you take that one.
You don't want to be getting out.
No, I think
that is a fantastic question.
Because it's going to lead to a great point.
And so the commonality was that we all were there for different reasons.
Okay, that's what I.
And so it was really kind of exciting because we did have, was it six people there, and each was there for a different purpose. So me personally, I am not here just for abortion, but all life, I believe, is precious and given by God. And so, I'm concerned about the aged, the infirmed, the people that are the outcasts, whether it be someone who is born with a paralysis or a birth defect or something else. All of them, each of us, is precious, and so that was the issue. Others came because of the a little interest in the political aspect. Others were there because of their Catholic faith and wanting to support that aspect from them.
Well, and that's what we really like to allow people to understand, is that, you have two sides. You have the warring pro-choice and the warring, pro-life. And what happens is these two factions just get together and they keep butting heads and nothing gets done. So we like to label ourselves as where labels end, actually, and conversation begins, because we had I know we're skipping around a lot, but one of our beautiful events we had was a forum, and we didn't have a lot of people attend, but we had some questions called in from that written to us, and we had a full panel of people with different ideas. So we fielded questions, and some people on our committee are a little bit more pro-choice. Some people, are definitely against abortion at all costs. But together we're agreeing and unifying that we all agree that this law can change and that women need to be supported before abortions if they don't want to have an abortion. They need to be supported afterwards if they're suffering from the after effects. They need to be supported if they've been raped. So we all share common goals. And one of the things that we really love to do is we love to educate people. I'm out and about, and Anne Marie, who's also on the committee, she's with me all the time collecting signatures, and I'll get to that a little bit. She's doing the camera. We really believe that when people understand what the law is and how that relates to fetal development, they agree with us. Whether they still remain pro-choice, they agree that aborting babies up to 24 weeks in the womb is wrong. And That's the beauty of it.
That is the law
That's currently the law in the state of Massachusetts, and that when people walk away, we really believe that when they have that information through self-reflection, they're going to come to the conclusion, maybe not in front of us if they haven't, that this law needs to be changed. And a couple instances when we were collecting signatures for our bill by request, one woman, we were at the polling station, I think we were in Groton actually, and a woman was very adamant about her stance about pro-choice, and we just kind of talked with her. We let her know what the law was. She was a little bit surprised. She went in and she voted. She came back out and she says, "You know what? I just need to thank you." She said, "I really."
She a young woman?
No, she was probably in her
older
50s.
woman.
She says, "I need to go home and talk about this with my husband because you've made me think about a few things." And I have to say, 80% of the people we talk to don't know the law. And when they understand the law, they want to see it changed and brought down to 12 weeks.
Tell us specifically, what is the law? 24 weeks, I know.
On demand, right. And anything after
How
the
about
24
the
weeks.
mother's health?
Well, okay, so 24 weeks is what's considered on demand, up to 24 weeks. That's any reason. Again, it has to be done by a physician, so people think that, oh, well, a doctor has to approve it. No.
Right.
Any reason for up to 24 weeks. It could just be financial, she doesn't want to be pregnant, whatever. And I'm not saying it's an easy decision. I'm just saying whatever her personal reason is. After 24 weeks, then it has to be either the detriment of her health or her baby, then to do an abortion after that. So we're trying to bring it down to 12 weeks on demand. And then anything after that would then be for the health of the mother or for the baby. And actually, this lines up with most of liberal Europe. Most of liberal Europe cuts the cutoff date at 12 weeks to 16 weeks, which people are also surprised about that. That they think, Europe is so far more progressive than we are, and they realize that it's better for the woman, it's certainly better for the developing fetus, and it's better as a society to have these kind of restrictions.
Now, how did Massachusetts decide on the 24 weeks? Where did that come about,
Boy, I don't know. That's pretty long-standing. I don't know as far as that's concerned, but it's been quite a while.
I think, can't remember her name, McCovey. There was a woman, the so-called Jane Doe. They renamed her. I think her name was McCovey. She was the one who originally took the whole thing to court. She was an unmarried young woman and became pregnant, and she wanted the time extended. It turned into a big court case. A little bit that I remember about it. I'm not being specific.
Yeah,
so
no,
I shouldn't
actually,
really.
well, that was for Roe v. Wade, and her name was Norma McCorvey, right? And you know a little
What
bit
is
about
it?
her.
McCorvey? Yeah, that's the one.
McCorvey.
McCorvey, yeah.
Right, and so that's where the whole trimester delineation was birthed. Really, was out of that court case, and so that kind of is the ceiling that we're aiming for right now. Is 12 weeks, is based on the Roe v. Wade outcome, which is the first trimester, and so so I get some grief a little bit because I'm a Christ follower. And so I have some friends that are pretty strong pro-life people, and I am too. Let me be clear. I would prefer that there be no abortions. But I have some folks that say, why are you willing to accept 12 weeks and not insist on an outright ban? And quite frankly, the reason is because we have an existing law in place through the Supreme Court that puts that ceiling right now at 12. And so that is what we're going for. And I think that is perfectly acceptable and worthy of support of all. And as DeeDee has highlighted, we have a number of our pro-choice friends who, when they realize what the law says, they recognize that, wow, I think that we can support and embrace something less, and 12 weeks is the rallying point.
The dark side. How many abortions are there in Massachusetts?
Oh, I actually have those.
Approximately. Is it a big number?
Yeah, actually, so this is the statistics for 2017. So for 0 to 8 weeks, it was 12,264. For 9 to 12 weeks, it was 4,134.
In the state.
In the state. For the 13 to 18 weeks, it was 1,394. For 19 to 23 weeks, it was 470. And for 24 weeks and above, it was 23. So if this law were in place in 2017, we would have saved 1,887 lives.
Wow.
So that's a considerable amount of lives that we could save. And to Blake's point, I have to say, Blake, Andrew, and Susan, I admire them so much because, I mean, we're all setting aside some of our personal convictions
Andrew and
to get
Susan
them.
are people that you work with?
Yes, they're on our committee too.
Okay.
You know, we're all setting aside personal convictions. I admire the fact that as Christ followers, this is really difficult for them. And that's one thing that, you know, being out and about and talking to people, a lot of people won't sign to help our bill by request because it's not a ban. And I explained to them that, you know, personally, you know, I believe in the beauty of conception. I believe in the beauty of an egg splitting off. You know, I just think it's amazing. It's incredible, the design of human life.
It is.
But I can't get everybody to respect it that way. And the people that refuse to sign because it's not an all-out ban, I like them to figure out, is there a way that they can set their personal values aside and join with us? Because we have never been able to come together as a people to figure out when life begins. I mean, we had the Stoics saying that a fetus wasn't a person and life didn't begin until its first breath. And then we had Aristotle saying that a person became, you know, a person at 40 days in the womb if you were a boy, and 90 days if you were a girl. So we respect the fact that even back then,
You know, that was a long time ago.
but the point remains that, you know, we all have
There's
personal
differences,
convictions,
right.
But together we can all decide based on science and based on health that 12 weeks is better for the woman. It's a simpler procedure in the first trimester. It's better for a developing fetus because as the fetus develops, the pain receptors are there, and second and third trimester abortions involve dismemberment, and it's very nasty what can happen. And so as a people, we can take what we know and we can do better. And I just ask people to join us, even if this is so hard for you to set aside because you want an all-out ban. That's not going to happen. This is liberal Massachusetts. We have to remember where we are.
I know.
So if I could just jump in.
Yeah.
So you probably don't know this, DeeDee, but I am a grandfather. And and so
A young one at that.
well, thank you. I am. My youngest son and his wife just announced that they are expecting.
Oh, congratulations.
And so Susan and I are already announcing
This is the
that
first?
we are, yes,
First
our
grandchild.
grandparents. And people say, well, no, you will be. And we say, no. We believe
are.
in life begins at conception. And so, although they only informed us a few days ago, we actually have been grandparents for about 10 weeks now.
Oh, that's
And so
exciting.
we are very excited. Now, when I was explaining to my father last night about this, you know, he and my mom were kind of like, what?
Where's the
How
baby?
can this be? So anyway, thank you.
Well, congratulations on that. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Now,
That's
the signature
terrific.
drive, how far short did that fall?
Okay, well, the signature drive to get the abortions not paid by taxpayer.
Right.
Actually, this might have been their second or third time to try it. I'm not sure, but it was each time they inch a little bit further. And just to let you know, our bill by request, so what we're doing, backing up a little bit, is we have a couple of legislators who are working with us. So and actually when we propose the law change, we're not doing it through a ballot. We're doing it a bill by request in January. So in other words, we're requesting as citizens that they present this law change for us. Now you don't have to have signatures to do that. But we want to tell our legislators that we have been out and about in the communities educating people, and these people who have signed agree with us. They want to see this law changed. So, you know, that's the political process that we're taking right now as far as that's concerned. But you know what I'd love to have Blake do is read the legal definition of abortion
Please,
here in
yeah.
the state of Massachusetts, because it's actually very eye-opening.
It really is. And so if I can.
This is a definition of an abortion.
Yes. Yeah, in Massachusetts law, and I sorry I don't have the exact reference for you, but abortion, the knowing destruction of the life of an unborn child, or the intentional expulsion or removal of an unborn child from the womb, other than for the principal purpose of producing a live birth or removal of a dead fetus. Isn't that
Powerful.
amazing?
It is.
pretty
It's very, very
blatantly,
powerful.
obvious. Yeah.
I remember, not recently, out of curiosity, what is the current state of abortion, for whatever reason, on a computer. And they were talking about partial birth, and they were showing diagrams of the doctor with the forceps. It was horrible. I can't even,
It
pulling
is.
the leg off of
It
a
is hard,
baby.
yeah. Well, and what you're speaking of is actually the extraction. So the first
Yeah.
trimester, actually the first
it's horrible.
Well, it is, because you know what it is? It's horrible. It's horrible just listening to that, but it's also dangerous for the woman and traumatic once they find out what really happened. I mean, the first trimester abortions, are, I hate to say simple, but I mean they're called a dilation and curettage. So in other words, the pregnancy is small enough so that it can be sucked out. It can just be sucked out, and that's that. Or a woman could actually do what's called a medical abortion, which is the abortion pill. We've all heard that. That's actually a 2-pill process where they take one pill, which stops the progesterone, and then within usually 48 hours they'll either take another pill or they'll have a vaginal suppository that will then expel the pregnancy. So that's done usually up to 10 weeks. So you could get a medical abortion that way, or a surgical to 12 weeks, which is the simple suction. Second and third trimester abortions, actually now we're talking about a developing fetus. So, not to get too technical, but if it's earlier in the second trimester, most likely they're not going to kill the baby first with the shot of digoxin to the belly. So they'll just dismember the baby piece by piece. So they'll have to go in there, suck the fluid out, and then use forceps to just kind of pull. They don't even know what they're pulling. So this is actually a dangerous procedure.
This was schematic. It was
Right. Well, yeah, and we don't like to get too graphic.
I couldn't.
Well, you can't. But then I just want to say that as the baby fetus develops, whatever you want to call it, if it's further along, they'll have to give a shot of digoxin to kill the baby first, and then they'll still do the same procedure. But what people need to understand is that the science is showing that up to 20 weeks, 18 to 20 weeks, that baby can feel pain, and that if a doctor were to perform an operation on a baby in the uterus, which they might do for spina bifida or something, they'll actually give pain medication to that baby to err on the side of caution. So here we are, torturing these little beings in the belly, and people don't know this, and people need to know this, and it's difficult to talk about. I see you scowling. I mean, preparing for these shows that we do is heart-wrenching for me, because I need to go back and I need to really get my facts straight. I don't want to be seen as someone who's releasing propaganda. I try to be very truthful, and I encourage people to go ahead, and if you don't believe what I'm saying, do your research. It's out there, and it's horrifying, and it's sad.
I suspect that, like so many things, people don't really do their homework. They really don't know. I'm sorry.
Now, the 24 weeks that Massachusetts taxpayers pay for it, is that the limit in Massachusetts, or can
Okay, so
abortions-
up to 24 weeks is on demand. So in other words, a woman can decide for whatever reason, simply, I do not want another child, on demand. After 24 weeks, it requires a medical diagnosis that would be harmful to the mother, were she to continue the pregnancy, or if there's a problem with the baby that would need to be discontinued. So those two, we'll keep that in the law. We're not trying to change that. We're just simply trying to change the numbers, and
When does the mother's health, when is it considered more important than the delivery? At what point? I mean, if a mother has a blood disease, for example, and they're not aware of it until the baby is now, 20 weeks or whatever, how do they decide? The mother is always first, I would imagine. Until what point? I mean, if the baby is about to be born and they find out that the mother has a life-threatening whatever it is, I mean, is it up to the family? Is it up to...
Well, after so many weeks, the baby's
Well,
viable anyways.
well, you know what's interesting, and I think I kind of hear where you might be going with this, is that obviously it's an individual choice at that point. I mean, it is between a woman and her doctor. I mean, if she's choosing her life versus the life in her belly, you know, obviously we have to respect the difficulty of that choice. But if I'm hearing you correctly, there's a Dr. Livatino, and he's performed thousands of abortions, and he's since become pro-life, and he goes about and he educates about the abortion process. And his career as an OBGYN or an abortionist too, he has never once had to abort and kill a baby to save a woman's life. So that, in other words, you know, actually the later term abortions, if they're done, you know, without the help of the, you know, if they're done, you know, it's actually a couple of day process. They have to go in there, they have to dilate the cervix, they have to then kill the baby and then deliver a dead baby. So I mean, if you're talking about an emergency situation, you know, to save the life of a mother, you know,
Yeah.
a quick C-section would do that. And you know, he describes that, you know, he talks about that. You know, he's very good at educating the public. But to your point, I mean, you know, we do respect that these are decisions that are difficult for a woman. We're just trying to get those on-demand the on-demand abortions, for whatever reason, down to 12 weeks for the safety of the mother as well, and for her mental health. You know, because these later term abortions, you know, there's a lot, you know, Andrew Robertson, who's on our committee, he's doing a lot of research about post-abortive depression, and we're offering information how people can get help from that.
How old is your organization?
Oh, since April, so how long?
You're relatively
Yeah.
new.
Oh yeah,
Is
we're
it
new.
growing?
Yeah, we're growing, yes.
And you're located out of Billerica, or, I mean, do you have a particular address, or is it just your email address?
Just the email right now, yeah, just
Okay.
email, and we have monthly meetings, and you
Okay.
know, we get out and about. Tell them about the Knights of Columbus. That was awesome.
Well, that really was. So we were asked to speak at the Knights of Columbus, you know, an arm of the Catholic Church, and they of course had their private session, but then they invited us in, and I really wasn't sure what to expect, and I was thrilled when we had a group of probably 35 or 40 men that were there, and we just shared what we were about, our purpose, our objective, and we had over an hour-long conversation with them, and really answered questions that they had, and a lot of interest and support, and it was very good. Obviously, Knights of Columbus is an all-male group, but
I was the one lady in the
that's
room.
right. You did a fantastic job.
I'm happy to hear that, because I am a former member of the Knights, and I'm glad that it worked out well. As Catholics, I would imagine, I've heard it from so many priests at the upper level, that life is sacred, and they are always talking about it one way or another, in sermons every now and then, but especially there's a men's group that meets over at St. Margaret's, and I'm sure that that's one of the topics that comes up frequently. They try to relate it to, I guess, to the religious works and to people of the church, but it is an important issue for them. It's an important issue for everyone. It really, really is. I just can't get my head around destroying a baby. I really can't. It's very difficult. You know, if the mother is in trouble, I can understand it, but well, you know, I've seen these visuals of the way they go about. They're terrible.
Well, they are, and there's a lot of pressure. I think of my time as a commander. I was at Ellsworth Air Force Base, and one of my fellow commanders, his wife, they were pregnant with their first child, and they were informed fairly early in pregnancy that the baby was going to be Down syndrome. And they were given counsel from a number of different sources to abort. Just abort the baby. You're young. You'll be able to have more children. You know, why burden yourself with this? I'm very happy to say that they chose not to abort that child, and in the end, a perfectly healthy baby was born.
God bless them. Wow.
And and that is part of, again, why I'm in this group, is I haven't lived, I wasn't him, but
close enough.
we're close, and
Yeah.
we lived a few houses down from each other, and we prayed in earnest for that family, and we were celebrating their decision to choose life.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that they almost, and they were encouraged to abort what would have been a whole perfect child.
Wow.
And so, even when the medical professionals argue that, oh, looks like that there's this could be one that you probably should consider, they're not always
Even then.
right.
Even then.
Well, and you know what they're doing in Iceland now? They're actually eradicating Down syndrome through abortion, and that's just horrific. I mean, we're all old enough to remember that show. I can't remember what it was called, Family or something, where, Corky, who had Down syndrome,
Oh,
was the
yes,
main
yes,
character.
yes, yep.
He actually speaks in front of the Senate, and he says, my life has value. And, we remember looking at people with Down syndrome and just admiring the beauty of the simplicity, the love that they have, the life that they get to lead. That they're beautiful people, and that doesn't mean we don't recognize that there's challenges for them and their families, but to get rid of a whole, what people call a problem, where we used to admire people with that, and the fact that, that people in Iceland are getting
And
rid of that.
if you do that, who's next on the list?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Every life is a challenge.
True.
Even those that are healthy is a challenge. Why deny a little baby because they have some particular impediment, or even if it's a physical disability? It just doesn't make any sense at all. I think we're, regardless of whatever religion, I think that we're here for a reason, and I think that it's destroying life. The only time is when, and the other part of this that bothers me is, how many young people have abortions? Do you have any?
I don't have the
You read some
statistics for age.
numbers,
I
and
do.
you-
I think I can break that down. I'd have to go
No, but I
fishing
mean,
through my
is it
paperwork.
still, has it improved? Is it still strong here in Massachusetts? Are there still,
Well, you know what's interesting is when we're out and about, we don't like to disparage Planned Parenthood. That's not one of our missions. We have so many positive things that we can talk about and positive messages that we can give. But I did look a little bit at the Planned Parenthood website, and I actually took this on 5/23 of 2018. And reading some of their language on the website, they talk about, they'll get medicine that it will make you super relaxed. It can be super painful to get an abortion. You wonder who their target audience is to use adjectives like that. And that, and then when they're really dishonest is that when they're talking about the D&E, which is the dilation and evacuation, when they actually have to dismember the baby, they say that, you may get a shot in your stomach and it may hurt, but they're not telling on the website that this is the shot that kills the baby. And then they'll say that they'll use a combination of medical tools and suction device to gently take the pregnancy tissue out of your uterus. It's not tissue when you're second trimester. You were talking about a baby. So when you look at, our young women getting abortions, I don't have the statistical numbers, but I have seen enough on Planned Parenthood that alarms me that who is their target audience? Who are they trying to bring in for these abortions?
Well, and I think that strengthens the argument for and the benefit of the sonograms, and encouraging abortion-minded women and their husbands or partners to go in and see a sonogram. And when you see it, it moves from being a tissue to being a baby, and that does have a profound impact on their decisions afterwards.
Yeah, that's so true.
Instances.
the other thing that is, and I don't know very much about it, I've heard, is it's called harvesting parts of the fetus to use in the health or the improvement of health of people who are living, whether it's tissue or whether, and I just can't get my head around that.
It is hard to think about.
No, I mean, I can't. There was, not so long ago, they did an undercover story about a man who went in, posing to be someone. I saw it on
No, that's Project Veritas, I believe.
Yeah.
David DeeDee.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. He was posing to be someone interested in buying parts of the baby, and the conversation was, well, how much for a heart or a leg or whatever it happens to be, different parts, you know. And the conversation went on like this, and it's just almost
It's hard to
unimaginable.
fathom, it really is. Now, somewhat related, but what is the oversight in Massachusetts as far as clinics? I'm sure you're familiar with the Gosnell movie and how Pennsylvania looked the other way. What is the oversight process like in Massachusetts as far as the clinics here? Do you know?
I don't have an answer
No,
to that
okay.
question. You know, I don't know. You know, I just know that.
Paul, when you oversight, you mean at what point does it become a crime?
No, as far as inspection, as far as
Oh,
how
okay.
many things are under regulation in Massachusetts. I'm just curious about clinics.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume that under the Mass Public Health, they would have criteria they have to meet, and whatever inspections would be required.
At your meetings, how often have you had meetings?
Well, we meet about once a month. We took a little bit of time off for the summer.
Where do you meet?
We use BATV Studios.
Okay.
They're not affiliated with us, but
Okay.
they always open up their rooms for the community to have their meetings. And also, you're talking about our meetings too. I did want to give a couple of other things about what we do.
Sure.
We have Kathy Parsons, who's part of our team, and she's done a wonderful job finding about the local pregnancy care centers in our area. And she's actually put her name and number out there to work as a resource for women. She's certainly not capable of counseling them in any way other than to help them find resources other than Planned Parenthood. Kathy Parsons, yeah, she's done a great job doing that. We also have, Andrew Robertson, who I mentioned before, working with the post-abortive issue, learning all that he can, and we also linking up resources through that. We have Anne-Marie Ciccarelli, who again is running that camera.
Ciccarelli?
She works on the adoption angle. She herself adopted her son, so this is a perfect fit for her. Right now she's currently researching, the ins and outs. She wants to be a little bit more up to date about what the process is to adopt here in the state of Massachusetts, but she certainly has a wonderful story to tell. So you can see, although we do have political motives, we also want to really help our community and help our surrounding community talk about this issue, bring forth information for women who might be faced with a crisis pregnancy.
Everyone is willing to talk and discuss it.
Yeah.
Right, so it's a matter of trying to address some of the causes, some of the reasons. I can't raise this child. Well, have you considered adoption? I'll be kicked out of my home. Well, there are places like my father's house in Chelmsford, which will take in teen pregnant girls and help them through the process of getting through birth, getting their GED if they need to, and putting them in a position where they can kind of graduate and move into life and have a chance at raising that child and living a reasonable life.
Yeah.
And so there's all the issues, and again, as you highlighted, not everyone chooses to keep their baby, and if they do, there are a large number of people that are in distress over that choice that they've made and trying to help. And so we're not just casting people away because they have chosen this unfortunate path, but instead they let them know that there is hope.
One thing what did you say that at our first forum? It was so amazing too, and I loved what you said about, respecting that this is easy to say as a man, but it's only 9 months. When you really think in the course of a lifetime, and I don't want to take your words out of, but I loved what you said about that. If you can just express that, because it was so powerful.
Well, so I say things and I don't write them down. So, but in that sense,
taking notes.
It is easy for me to come here as a man and say,
be pregnant.
Don't have an abortion.
Yeah.
I'm not the one who is dealing with the stigma if I were unmarried and to be showing and have to deal with that and to carry that child and to there's not much public shame anymore, but I'm a little bit older guy, and there was back in the day. But it is a baby, and is that life not worth a little bit of embarrassment, a little bit of postponing life? There are so many people that are waiting to adopt a child, and too often they are thrown away. And,
That was one of my questions. There is a big adoption market now. There, as you said, there are a lot of people who are looking for. A baby is born, and the young woman doesn't have the means to take care of it. The market for adoption is there. There are people who are always looking for them. Yeah. I wanted you to mention, when you mention those people, the name of your organization, once again?
Is Life Alliance. Actually, Kathy Parsons came up with that name because we met. We didn't have a name. We all just said, well, let's bounce it around. And we bounced it around for a week, and Kathy came with this whole list. We all came with a list. And Kathy said, Life Alliance. We're like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's it. So then I went home and I thought, well, we got to get a website. And my son's helping me find websites. And lifealliance.life was there.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, is that not divine inspiration or what? Because that's the perfect website for us.
No, but folks out there might want to tune in. Or
Yeah, so
find out what's going.
lifealliance.life. They can.
And on that, do you have updates as to when you're meeting and whatnot?
Well, yeah, we haven't really updated the meetings so much, but we have put all of our events. And actually, if you don't mind, we do have an event coming up, and anybody in this listening area can join us. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be collecting things that we're going to take over to my father's house in Chelmsford. I hate to be rattling pages, but
Things for babies?
right, yeah, I'm going to give a list of the things that we're trying to collect, and also for the Heartbeat Pregnancy Care Center here in Billerica. So we're asking for, Burlington. I'm sorry. Good catch.
Is this the one at St. Margaret's
Yes,
again?
yeah.
Okay.
So for my father's house in Chelmsford and the Heartbeat Pregnancy Care Center in Billerica, we're going to be.
Burlington.
Oh my gosh! I wish
That's
this
all right.
wasn't
That's
live.
okay.
Burlington. Can you do this? So we're looking for maternity clothes, baby clothes, which are new or gently used, diapers, wipes, lay-it items. They need things like laundry soap, regular laundry detergent, Clorox wipes, gift cards to maybe a Target or the grocery store, Market Basket, or something like that. Because at my father's house, they actually like to encourage these girls to learn how to shop. So they like to set them out and say, okay, go to Target or go to Kohl's or whatever and buy what you need and learn how to budget. So we're going to be collecting those items on Saturday, November 10th from
Where?
10 to 12 at BATV.
Okay.
And then Monday, November 19th from 6 to 8. So we're asking everybody to...
Repeat those dates again.
Okay, so we'll be at BATV in Billerica on Saturday, November 10th
Okay.
from 10 to 12. And then Monday, November 19th from 6 to 8 in the evening. So
And
those are the drop-off points that they
Just
can
about
drop off.
anything that a new baby can use,
Absolutely.
or a young woman with a new baby can
Yeah.
use. I have to. I taught Italian at St. Margaret's for the Sons of Italy. We used the building, that same building that I don't know her name. I've met the woman that is in charge there, that one that you mentioned. And it was quite an experience to go into the room and to lay out all of my papers and to look around and see the things that they had collected for babies all against the wall.
yeah.
Hundreds of different things, cradles and blankets and anything and everything
that's
that you could think.
amazing.
And this was so in, I think, most of the rooms. So I was aware of it. I was aware of it then, and thanks to you two, I think I'm a little bit more so. I also have an anecdote that I have to share. When I was in the service, I was located in Germany. I was there for over 2 years, and I was in charge of an education center. We were teaching young GIs who didn't have their high school diploma to come to this education. They were pulled from all the units. That was part of my job. And we would teach them basics so that they would earn their GEDs. I had a secretary, German, young woman, a lovely, warm person. She came in one day, she was crying, obviously. She realized that she was pregnant. She didn't know this went on for about a month and a half. She was desperate. She didn't know what to do. Her family would not accept it. So it was a first-hand experience of how difficult it can be. She ended up, I think, going to Austria to have an abortion. I think is what happened. I don't know. I never really bothered to find out exactly what happened. But I can sense the agony that must be involved in carrying a baby and then having to lose it or not wanting it or finding yourself in that position where you have to make that difficult choice. And I agree with you. The baby should be born healthy, and hopefully someone will find a home for it and take care of it. That's I want to say the Christian kind of thought. I don't know what other adjective to put on it, but I think that is pretty much. I felt so bad for her. I didn't know what to do.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about that. Obviously, every single one of us on the committee has compassion for that situation. None of us are cruel people. But what comes to mind is that the difficulty that she experienced going through that, and had she had the abortion, people don't talk about the post-abortive depression and the issues that can come years later, and it's unfortunate that people aren't willing to talk about it. Women aren't getting educated. They're not told that this is something that could happen to you. They're told propaganda, which my body, my choice. The word choice. These were very crafted words in the late '60s and early '70s by actually Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who's since repented. He's dead right now, but he did repent. He takes a lot of blame for that kind of propaganda that women were exposed to. And when you think about the times in the '60s and '70s, and prior to that, it was hard for women to even just get birth control. You can understand why they were angry. They were angry. They couldn't even control the births. They weren't even allowed birth control. And then all of a sudden, abortions became legal. It all became let's make this good. My body, my choice. Pro-choice, and these were very crafted words to make it more difficult for the woman. And that's sad. And what's sad is what she might have experienced or what she might be experiencing to this day because of that decision that she made.
But don't you think that given what used to happen, the back alley kind of thing 50, 75 years ago, that we have come, I want to say, to a more modern world, a more responsible world. At least we're looking at individual cases. At least we're trying to find outlets for individual cases. I don't know what happened then. I'm talking about when you would have a doctor who wasn't a doctor who would perform an abortion, and it used to go on, I'm sure.
Well, what's interesting too is learning about Bernard Nathanson is that he actually lied. He was one of the doctors that lied about the amount of back alley abortions that were going on, and that the amount of women that were dying. And I actually have the stats here of what he lied to the people and what they actually were. But then you go back to, is one back alley death more than we should accept, So, the very fact that the numbers were skewed, he actually skewed the numbers and said that 1 million women were getting, back alley abortions when actually the stats were 98,000. And he said that 5,000 to 10,000 women died when actually it was 250 women who died. So he's since admitted this since, he became pro-life and really realized it was actually in 1973 when they started with the ultrasounds, he was able to see. He had done probably 5,000 abortions, 2 of his own children. And, he was the one that was responsible for this propaganda. He led the mission. And on his deathbed, he talked with a woman named Terry Bately, and he said, please continue to get my word out. Please continue to tell people how I've lied and how this was sold to them as a bad bill of goods. So it goes again back to that poor woman, who's suffering, and she's hearing propaganda that actually might not be helpful to her.
Given the current climate of politics, I'm thinking of the Kavanaugh appointment. It's been said many times over now that now there are 5 conservative justices, and they have talked about, I don't think the Supreme Court has talked about it all, but I think that people on the outside, especially the media, have talked about the possibility of overturning Roe versus Wade. Have you thought about that? Have you broached that in any way? I've heard this on a couple of occasions. Why they would do it? Conservatism is a view of life that is certainly equal to any other, but I don't know what would happen if they.
Well, it would go back to the states, you know.
In all likelihood. So our purpose is
regardless of.
right. So our group, our focus is really trying to get the law changed from 24 weeks to 12.
Right.
We have members that are looking forward to what might come with the change in the Supreme Court. But the issue is, you don't know. None of us know how he and the rest of the court are going to rule on on the next case that we brought forward that could challenge Roe versus Wade.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of the hyperbolic speak that we have that's going on, and this defamation of character and winning at any cost. Our whole objective really is to communicate with people, to educate, and to encourage them to reflect on what they've heard, what they know, and through that they might soften their position on the 24 weeks and accept the 12 and encourage their representatives and senators here in Massachusetts to embrace that.
Well, I just as an outsider with very little knowledge, I would think that if there was going to be a change, I would think that 12 weeks would be one of the more logical steps on that road. Maybe the election of Kavanaugh may have been just exactly what you're going to need, or what you will need, or what you do need, and hopefully it will come to pass. I don't know. Do you talk about it in your meetings?
We talk about a lot of stuff in our meetings, actually, and that's one of the reasons I love our meetings, because it's a safe place for us to just really kind of talk about the abortion issue and our personal feelings and all that. Someone, usually it's me, has an issue because I've read something or something upset me. But I don't think we've really even gone that far. We're really focused on what we can do here in Massachusetts.
It's brand new.
Well, and it's funny because after, this whole thing with Kavanaugh, I'm like, oh, geez, people are going to think we tied this in with that. But no, we started this before even his name came up, because we really are focusing in with what we can do in our community and outside of our community. So thank you for letting us come here to really get out there and tell people. And you will go anywhere. We will take our little caravan of forum and we'll sit with anybody, and we'll take difficult questions. We'll answer your questions about what do we feel if X, Y, and Z happens, or how do we feel about this, or how do we reconcile that. And you'll find that we all have different answers, and that's the beauty of it. With different answers, with different viewpoints, we've come together and we've decided we can do this together. We may not all agree with it, but we can find our way to finding this. And we have our mission statement too. Can Blake read that?
Sure, yeah.
So a mission statement are guiding beliefs, and so it's above all we believe in the sanctity of life. Morally and constitutionally, we believe our unborn need protection from harm and or death. We accept that abortion has been and will always be divisive. Yet we seek to unify people in hopes that through communication, education, and self-reflection, we can modify our current abortion laws in Massachusetts and throughout our country. We consider it our duty to support women who are faced with an unplanned pregnancy toward the path of life.
Very nice, very well written, and very inclusive of exactly what your mission is. Would you be interested in visiting a men's group at the church that talks? I don't know if you know him, Dr. Robert.
Absolutely.
Robert
yeah.
Gonay, his name is, and they're always discussing. I'd have to go and ask him. I don't know, but they're discussing worldviews with regard to, and this is certainly in their purview. I don't know if you'd be interested. If
100%.
okay,
Yeah.
I will mention it to him, and I will give him your name,
Yep, thank you.
LifeAlliance.life.
Yeah, we're going to be speaking at the Courageous Catholics Women Group in Billerica in January. We were at the Woburn Republican Committee
It's the way
over
you
the
get your
summer.
word out.
That's the way
It's
we
the way
do it.
people get to know you.
Yep.
It's,
Grassroots efforts.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. And we're just people. We're not politicians. We're just people who are becoming
We
friends.
have enough politicians. We don't want any more.
That's right.
We want people. We want real people.
Real people. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed a little clock up there, but it's hard to believe, and you didn't believe me when we began, but there's less than 3 minutes left.
Wow.
2 minutes and 48, and it's running very, very fast. I wonder if you would like to reintroduce yourselves and tell who and what you're doing, and once again, how they can reach you. I certainly want to give the name of, I don't know if they put it on the,
Yeah, they did.
did they put it on there? Okay. Once again,
So once again, I'm Blake Robertson, and I am from Billerica. One thing I didn't mention before, trying to steal too much time, but I have a cousin who is Down syndrome and profoundly deaf. And we had a great joy this week when we got to see video from my cousin Doug, his father, of him taking his first, he's a teenager now, his first roller coaster ride.
wow.
And the joy that he displayed, in spite of being flawed from a worldly perspective, was precious. And that is why I am supporting this issue.
Good for you. Well said. Yeah. DeeDee?
I'm willing to leave it at that. I think that's a beautiful way to end this. My name is DeeDee Dorrington. You know, you can contact us at lifealliancebillerica@gmail.com, or you can find us on the website, lifealliance.life, and we do have Facebook right now, so it's Life Alliance /Billerica. Because eventually we hope that other communities and towns will join us in our efforts, and they could do like Life Alliance Burlington, Life Alliance Chelmsford, Life Alliance Springfield, or whatever. That's one of our goals, is to kind of get other people out in their
And
communities
you
to do
are
this.
only, as of the moment, only how old?
Oh, 6 months? Yes.
6 months.
We're
Okay,
brand
you're
new.
brand
yeah.
new. You got a
We're
long
brand-
way to go.
Yeah, but we have business cards. We just got those.
You just got what? Business
Business cards.
Oh,
Yeah, we're at
yeah, that makes you official.
we're at episode number 3 versus 93.
Exactly, that's right. We're in the infant stage. How's that?
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
good. Thank you so much, though, for having us.
It's been a pleasure. I think we both
Absolutely. It's been very enlightening, and I commend you for your efforts just getting out there and starting a grassroots thing. It's not easy to get started, but it's great work you're doing.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, both of you, for coming. We have 27 seconds left. I just want to talk to the audience.
We actually have a full minute, so we have
What?
a full minute.
A full minute.
Okay.
19, 18.
Oh, I know. Okay, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that we have some wonderful guests coming up in the near future. If you will tune in, I'm not going to give you the list of people. I don't think we have enough time. Thank you for joining us so very much, and thank you to our guests for having shared the hour with us. And we look forward to having you visit with us again. Thank you.
Take care.
Grazie. Merci.